But if I am verbal, my safe word is Shaka Khan.
Hello and welcome back to Behind the Closed Door, a weekly podcast where I, your host, Joaquin De La Torre, and a friend of the pod wander into the dark and sweaty hidden underworld of kink. On this pod, our goal is to destigmatize kinks and fetishes so that more people feel empowered to explore their freakiest desires without fear of shame or ridicule. On today's episode, I'm joined by my hot, sexy, and smart friend who's going to chat with us about their asphyxiation kink. When they're not working as an HR analyst, they can be found hanging out with family or going to concerts. Please welcome to the mic, my good Judy, Angel darling.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, for the listeners at home, I'm going to just do a quick little rundown of what an asphyxiation kink is and just go over some of the research, okay?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so according to an article published by WebMD that I found online, sexual asphyxiation, I can't say that word. Am I saying it right?
It sounds like it has you in a chokehold.
It really does. God, grab me by the freaking neck. Okay, so sexual asphyxiation, also known as erotic asphyxiation, is the act of consensually choking someone for sexual pleasure, and it falls under the breath play kink. Some online say it's the most dangerous kink around. Angel, you're a dangerous woman.
Something about you.
Yeah, because it's pretty dangerous, because I don't know if you know this, but when you choke someone, they could die.
Right? You don't say.
Yeah, and I'm learning so much more about it. Like, they could die or go into cardiac arrest, which isn't to, like, bring down the mood. I hope I'm not doing that. But, like, you know, there are some risks involved. Just be mindful of that. And, like, well, I guess we'll talk to you about that. Because I'm kind of curious about your thought process. But we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But I just want to also say, so now that we know what sexual asphyxiation is, let's go into some of the data. According to a 2021 study of undergraduate students completed by the Journal of Sexual Medicine, they found that 47.3% of participants who had experienced any kind of sex had been choked before. Are you surprised by that?
I'm not. I've never had an original experience my whole life.
Neither have I. I mean, I think one of the first times I had sex, I was like, yep, choke me out, daddy. Choke me out.
Does baby want to choke me?
But, you know, there are some risks involved, of course, like I said earlier. I'm kind of curious on your experience. Well, first of all, are you the choker or the chokee?
That depends, I think, on the person. But I would say mostly I enjoy being choked.
What do you enjoy about it?
What do I enjoy? Well, I think we talked about this once before, but I really just enjoy the relinquishing of control. I think I live such a hyper-controlled life, and I'm a very controlling person. So being able to be vulnerable and know that this person has that power over you in this moment is what's truly exhilarating. But don't get me wrong, I don't want to die. But
you sure?
Yeah.
Some of the conversations we have out off pod, I'm like, oh my god, I should really check in on her.
Like I said, I don't necessarily want to die, but I don't want to be totally sure that I'm gonna live.
So it sounds like it's very much like a power thing. It's this person has the capacity to kill me, but they won't. Is it also partially in play like they won't do it because they like me?
Something to that effect, I'd say. But it definitely has a lot to do with power, and it has a lot to do with relinquishing that power to someone else. And I think somewhere in our brain, we have a defense mechanism, and that kind of turns on in the moment when someone is choking you, even if you know that it's not real or this harm isn't really going to happen. I think there's something that like forces you to stay on edge. You know, actors talk about it, like the body doesn't know that they're acting. The body is responding to the actual like stimuli. So that's kind of what's happening, I think, when I'm being choked as well.
That's interesting that you mentioned that, because I was reading online doing my research that, you know, there is the psychological, the power dynamic play of it. And then as you were mentioning, the element of your body's like literally in that fight or flight response. And then once you're finally like, you know, because it's a choke and then release.
Exactly.
And that release is where you're like, your body is like releasing all of these, you know, chemicals like dopamine, serotonin. And it's just like, you're about to die, but not anymore. So then it's that release. It's that rush, you know, Troye Sivan.
Definitely addicted to the rush.
And I want to feel your touch. Oh, God. Let's talk about the twink of the century.
You?
If you say so. Tell me, what's been your best experience with choking?
Best experience. I'd have to say it was well, I've told you multiple times that I've had encounters with someone who provides services to my family.
You're a landscaper. That's so race of you.
I love it. I love it. And I would say he's pretty, I guess, inexperienced when it comes to having sexual relations with men.
Is he DL?
Yeah, he is DL.
I love a DL, man. We can talk about that off pod. I can tell you a story too, but
I think that might be another kink of mine.
Yeah, another episode.
But as I was mentioning, he is not too experienced. You know, every time we've had sex, it's been pretty vanilla, I would say. And the first time I asked him to do that, he was shocked, and he also didn't really know what to do. And I think it was kind of scary at first because he did apply pressure in a very awkward way, and that really was scary because I'm like not used to that. Usually the people that are into choking have a little bit of experience with it.
Tell me, what was the wrong way? What do you mean?
So for me, I really like to feel like a firm grasp around the sides of my neck, like where the arteries are. He was kind of pushing down, like right in the middle of my throat, almost as if he were really trying to kill me.
Like crush your windpipe, essentially.
Yeah, he said, "You want to be choked?"
For the listeners at home, I'm grabbing my neck, and I'm really simulating the choke. I mean, is this about on par? Like, was he like going for the middle? You know, like.
Yeah, he was going for it, and I had to tell him in Spanish because he only speaks Spanish. Yeah.
That's so fascinating that you mentioned that, because like I was having my own experience with asphyxiation kink. I'm currently talking to a person, and his kink of choice is asphyxiation as well, and I'm not too familiar with it, but he was, because like I'm trying to like literally probably like your landscaper doing a very similar thing where I'm like just choking to choke, but he was like, no baby, I have an Adam's apple, you crush that, I die. So to kind of like get into biology here, men have the Adam's apple. I don't know what the proper terminology is for it, but that's there. So what you should do when you're going to choke out a man for sexual asphyxiation is right above the sternum. This is what he told me. I don't know if this is true. Don't take my word for it. But basically right above the sternum, you have the windpipe where it connects to your throat. And like you have to like kind of apply pressure to it. Have you ever experienced that where they're like doing that?
No, that's interesting.
Because you're saying size of the neck.
Yeah, but you know, I really do think it's different strokes for different folks. Because some people do like that. I think it's that method you were describing as more of a restriction of air, and the squeezing of the neck on the side is kind of like a restriction of blood flow.
You know, that's interesting stuff, because you're probably right. Like I think it is different. Like for women, example, like they don't have the Adam's apple, so they don't have that problem.
That's interesting. I've never thought about that.
I mean, I don't have that. Yeah, I don't have any experience there, I'll be honest. So I'm kind of curious. What are, if any, safety precautions that you take when playing with breath play?
Well, I've learned that if you don't have a safe word, then you have to have some sort of not gesture, but like I don't know why, but this is my thing. Like if they are going too rough or something, I essentially tap out. That's just what I do. I don't know, maybe growing up watching wrestling or something.
No, wait, shut up. Is it really like a...
It's like a little... Yeah, like I will literally tap them. Like, okay, that's enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Baby's had her fun.
Yeah. Mostly because if they have their hand firmly grasped on my neck, I'm not exactly verbal. But if I am verbal, my safe word is Shaka Khan.
That's a good one. Because how often, I mean, I don't know about you, I'm kind of yelling that during sex very often, actually. That would be a terrible safe word for me.
That would be a terrible safe word for you.
So I'm kind of curious, in this final little segment that we're about to talk about, do you have any tips or tricks for people who want to get into asphyxiation or adjacent breath play?
Well, even though the best experience I had was with a landscaper, mostly because I think it's just interesting when people are getting into it, and I think it's really exhilarating. My biggest problem, or I guess the scariest thing, was that I didn't prep him for it, and I didn't tell him what I wanted exactly. So I think the best thing to do is just be empowered. If that's something that you want, then you should express that to your partner, especially if you are having these intimate relations with them. And just really letting them know, like, this is what I like and this is how we can do it safely. And it doesn't have to be an awkward conversation. If anything, I think it can make you closer.
So what I'm hearing is communication is key.
Yes, communication is key. That would be my tips and tricks. And of course, it depends on what you're into, whether it's that restriction of the air or the restriction of the blood flow. Just do your research, because you can never be over-researched, I think. And just try things out. See what you like.
Breath play, interesting stuff, super fun, super dangerous. Get into it, yo. Thank you so much for talking with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
And thank you, listener, for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, you can subscribe and rate us on whatever podcast service you're using to listen to today's episode. Join us next week. We will be talking about another fun, kinky topic. I don't know what yet, but believe me, it'll be fun and kinky. Bye!